And so you need to bring institutional partners and assets to this ecosystem if you really want it to scale.
Right? Different kinds of Genius compliant collateral like 2A-7 money market fund securities, treasury bills, all of these things that are required to have a fully risk-free compliant fiat coin.
We want hype holders to benefit. So we can talk about this AF thing, but really outlining kind of like our perspective and learnings really of like, how do we grow this thing? Because you're right, it's just a ticker.
If you feel so strongly about this, why is this the case? Why not just give all of the revenues from the stablecoin back to the community?
How will you guys steward USDH to help expand USDH beyond the HyperLiquid ecosystem and essentially grow this pie?
Welcome back to The Roll Up. We are your hosts. I'm Andy.
I'm Robbie, and this is your home to learn from the biggest guests, the brightest minds at the tip of innovation.
Our goal is to help spread the collective knowledge of everyone in our community.
We are breaking crypto out of its echo chamber and taking it to the real world.
Well, we've got Nick in the back, and I was just looking at the latest from him, and there's some interesting specifics that I think that we ought to get into from the perspective of Agora and kind of their partners. So look, Rob, what we're going to do today is we're going to have a very streamlined set of questions for each of these people, try to make it very, very objective and fair for everybody, and just simply have some fun, hear some pitches, and learn about what these teams are doing. I think this is all in the spirit of, community, of decentralization, of the success of HyperLiquid, and just, the stablecoin super cycle. So guys, we are going to get Nick up, move in, and talk about the Agora USDH proposal. Nick, looks like you're in a cubicle in New York City. That's what I expect. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show. It's an exciting time. I think the USDH showdown has taken over the timeline. And so, we're in a position now where we can platform you guys. We're going to have a couple of the other proposed issuers on the show a little bit later. We're going to hear from each of you. And it's really exciting to put all these proposals on the table. I think this is democracy, meritocracy in action, and no better place for it than crypto. So,
and it's fun.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm happy to start and give context on our proposal and sort of like what we're trying to accomplish. But you guys let me know where you want to.
Yeah, exactly. Please, opening remarks. Just kind of, I just want to understand. I think the community wants to understand kind of your perspective of writing the proposal, where you guys are coming from, and just kind of your opening statement here. And then we got a couple good questions for you.
Yeah, so I was going to the office on Friday, little to my own knowledge that my weekend would get totally blown up by this. So I first got, someone sent me a DM and said, hey, this has come out. They're going to release the USDH ticker. There's already sort of been this pre-baked proposal suggested, you guys should throw your hat in the ring. And so, we immediately jumped on it. I would say, I had a stacked day on Friday with calls. So I actually started drafting our proposal at 5:30 p.m. on Friday. And the only proposal that was up at the time was, I think, the native markets proposal, which was a good proposal, obviously super community aligned team, but I think one of the advantages that we have is we're an issuer. So all we do is think about the challenges of scaling a stablecoin solution and to deliver, I would say, the best economics for the community. Right? I think the native markets proposal was most, and we're hey, let's just make this a public good, right? That was always an intention that we had at Agora. Is actually our original slogan was digital dollars are public goods. And, we want to actually highlight some of the most important things when running a very large institutional stablecoin, right? USDC supply on HyperLiquid is at 5 billion or 6 billion, give or take. That is real size, right? And so one of the things that we wanted to call out, at least in one of the proposals, is that outsourcing it entirely to a third party where this isn't their core business, I think inserts a lot of risk into the system. And so we called that out. And then I think one, it was just sort of upping to 100% revenue kickback, and then 3, trying to actually build a coalition around this to make it successful, right? A lot of the other proposals were single issuer focused. immediately what we did, and I think this is just kind of how we operate, is we pinged a lot of infrastructure partners that we thought would be super helpful, said, hey, we're going to put this proposal together, would love to have your guys' support with USDH, right? And Rain jumped on super fast, so did Layer Zero, as well as EtherFi, and a number of people just over the last 24 hours have continued to ping me directly, and I think while they wouldn't be like exclusive to just us, and nor should they be, right? I think obviously if someone else wins, like they should support USDH. They want to work with a team that they respect, have good communication with, and feel like they can execute with, right? Which is, I think, what we bring to the table. And yeah, this all happened like very quickly. Like it's funny, funny getting some of these questions in Twitter and in the Discord. Oh, have you thought about this, or you thought about this? Like, how are you thinking about this? I'm like, some of them, I'm like, honestly, like, we don't know, right? Like, we want to be committed to giving like 100% of the revenue back, but we want to hear from the community on like, okay, do you orient that towards stakers? Do you buy back hype? Like, what do you want us to do? And so something I was spitballing earlier this morning is like, well, maybe you actually just do like a quarterly governance vote. It's like, how do you want to, spend the revenue from USDH, right? And maybe that's just like the best way to do it versus like saying, in this proposal, we're going to do this for, forever, right? Which is probably not the smart thing to do, right? It gives you no flexibility. And so, yeah, there's a few more days. I expect there will be a few more proposals. But I think ultimately, like, this is bringing a lot of really good attention to the HyperLiquid, and has kind of led to the best economics for the community. So it's pretty fun to watch.
I think one thing that was
all-time highs this morning, guys. Like, it absolutely has.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead, buddy.
No, I mean it's obvious. There's obviously a lot of demand here. I mean, HyperLiquid's one of the most forward-looking teams, just to consider how much money that they were leaving on the table and now going through this open process rather than doing this behind closed doors. I think it presents the best of why we're in this industry, and that's healthy competition. And so I think it's really, really cool to see play out. One of the things that I was curious about is, and we were talking about a little bit about this before you hopped on, which is that this proposal is for this ticker, this USDH ticker, and then it's really like the work just begins. And I've seen a lot of these proposals talk about, okay, no matter what, we're going to contribute and be active participants in the HyperLiquid ecosystem, as well as be shepherds for this USDH stablecoin beyond just letting it be the quote asset for HyperLiquid's markets. So I'm curious, what would Agora do to help broaden USDH beyond just HyperLiquid, and what other things do you have in mind to become active and more active participants in the HyperLiquid ecosystem?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's like the work really does begin. I think like a lot of people have sort of put a lot more weight on this than, right, it is just a ticker, so it is just the beginning. But for us, like, we wanted to really open up. We view this as a way, one, to distribute revenue back to the community, but two, open up HyperLiquid assets to places where they haven't been exposed before, right? It's why we reached out to Rain. They support 150 plus countries, billions of merchants. You get access to Visa rails and all the payment rails that they're integrated in. With us, you have access to institutional grade banking, SWIFT, SEPA, ACH, Wire, all of this. With other partners like MoonPay as well. They're connected to pretty much every wallet in crypto. We've had a war room chat going with them and thinking like, okay, how can we integrate some of the builder codes direct to MoonPay's wallet clients? And so I think it's really broadening up the distribution of USDH beyond just the HyperLiquid ecosystem. And so we work with, like, I would say, a lot of the best in class, either infrastructure or applications sort of outside the HyperLiquid ecosystem to, really broaden up exposure. I would say within like HyperLiquid, it's all about seeding liquidity early and working with a bunch of partners. We've had a number of apps reach out over the last 24 hours that are interested to not only just seed liquidity, but also seed some incentives. We've had one counterparty reach out that wants to seed it with 9 figures of TVL and get some vaults going as soon as this launches. I think, and it's funny, someone actually in the Discord community was like, why why will this be successful? Like, why will USDH be more successful than like some of these other stable coins or white label stable coins? I'm like, because this is like really owned by the community, and like the Hyperliquid community is like so much bigger than I think a lot of people realize, right? It's, you go to Binance or OKX or someone, they're like, okay, it's going to be this to list me. We have people saying, oh, we'll do all this stuff for free, right? Because they know that the demand is going to be there. And so, look, I think we're going to do an excellent job executing with some of the best partners in the space. I think there's a number of other great proposals out there as well. What I would hate to see, though, is that this effectively goes to sort of a competitive firm and a competitive issuer that has their own chain and own ecosystem and might really look to use this to sort of vampire tax some of Hyperliquid, which is kind of what we called out in our post originally.
Introducing Extended exclusively on Starknet, a next-gen perps trading platform live today. With 50 plus trading pairs from crypto to TradFi, you get the best experience on chain today. Deposit in the community vault for attractive returns, EMV compatible, and engage in unified margin spot trading, lending, and perps trading. Exclusively live at extended.app on Starknet today. Okay, so when you guys are looking at this entire landscape and kind of trying to figure out the best way to navigate the community, you guys have been getting slapped around a bit by some anon on Twitter who probably got a massive Hyperliquid airdrop, who won't leave you guys alone, about Michael Siegel's, the CFA of a different Van Eck kind of arm, if you will.
Oh, Matt's,
tweets about Hyperliquid. So there's been some pushback from the Hyperliquid community with regards to the way that people within the Van Eck organization have addressed the platform in the past. Just want to give you a chance to kind of speak on that and kind of address how Van Eck works and kind of how either the views of one person or within the org don't represent all people in the org, or just kind of give your take on that, because I think that the community is going to want to hear a genuine response to this kind of pushback.
Yeah, I think it's a good call out, right? I think the way that Matt probably could have been a little bit more generous in how he engaged with the community then. Like, it was, frankly, personally speaking, it's pretty painful to watch. For me when it was happening, I kind of hoped people would memory hole it. And I also know it was painful for other people in the Van Eck team, right? It's a 500 plus person organization. It's a $130 billion asset manager. There's many different teams, right? You have the research team, the venture team, the trading team, ETF team, right? And I would say particularly on the venture team and the trading team side, they're very active with many of the teams in the Hyperliquid community. They know them. Many people at Van Eck are users of Hyperliquid, right? Either professionally or personally, but I can't comment on that. And yeah, it is what it is. Look, I mean, it's good, I think, also for you to have independent voices that may be open to a lot of criticism, which he clearly is. So that's kind of how I feel about that. I don't work there. I don't control them, right? So it's kind of unrelated to me. I understand if people have an issue with or supportive of other proposals, they may want to pin that on me, but I have zero control over that. Do I wish it didn't happen? Yeah, of course. It's annoying, right? Hyperliquid aside, I just generally think kind of acting like that is obtuse, but again, that's kind of it.
Alrighty. Guys, so Frax 35 minutes ago has just updated their proposal. So Nick, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at this, and I appreciate the response there. I think the community, I think a lot of people doubted Hyperliquid, and it's one of the very first kind of projects in the space that has really flipped the switch, or flipped the script per se, on kind of gave a bunch of these young, maybe community-oriented folk that aren't prominent in the space big airdrops, became powerful in the space, and now it's the tables are turning. You've got Van Eck coming for, to participate in this ecosystem. It's the institutions are coming for us, or it's the big players want to participate in what we've built. I think it's a really strong sign of product market fit, but I also think it comes with a lot of that kind of tribalism that you see early communities have success with. But kind of switching to what Frax has just done, they've announced that they are establishing a Frax-led USDH alliance with a federally regulated U.S. bank issuer. This bank is prepared to issue USDH if we are selected, with contracts under review. 100% to HyperLiquid, Hypercore ready, yada, yada. Nick, what is your take on the competitive landscape right now? Is Paxos missing the beat with 95% of revenue only? Is Frax now going to be more competitive with this new announcement? Generally, maybe how are you seeing this landscape within the realm of being HyperLiquid aligned? Like when you're looking at the other proposals and your own, I'm curious what you think HyperLiquid native or aligned means to you, in the landscape of this current situation, given the other proposals.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because specifically for this product too, like as an issuer, right, everyone else has almost been frozen out of HyperLiquid, because when the project originally started, right, it was like USDC, right, and so there was actually no way for like other issuers to be involved. So it's interesting, right? You could sort of have like the community-led ones where I think they're sort of outsourcing the operations, stablecoin regulation entirely to someone else, and saying like, hey, we come from the community, but we're going to outsource this to someone that we think could maybe do a good job, right? And so I think those are the ones that are really indexing on community, but like that brings a lot of risks to the table, right? Because then you basically have a team that isn't an issuer, doesn't maybe understand the ins and outs, right, of how to run these financial products, and then has a lot of dependencies on one provider to the table, right? Then I would say you sort of have, us, Paxos, Frax, I'm sure a bunch of other people are going to come in, right, that have said, hey, we've operated this type of business for a long time. Like we know how to do it well. And we want to broaden really actually the aperture of HyperLiquid to all these other ecosystems that we either participate in or traditional financial rails, right? So I would say like from our perspective, the way that like, many of us have been involved is primarily been personally in talking to teams, whether they're HyperLiquid native or actually came from other ecosystems and then have started, either pivoted or sort of added their product, into the Hyper ecosystem. And so working very closely with them to get lending and index markets stood up as soon as possible would be a priority of ours. But I'd say in terms of like alignment, right, like our objective, and I think everyone's objective is to how do you make USDH a huge success, right? And clearly there's going to be a tremendous amount of support within the HyperLiquid ecosystem. And so from our perspective, we're like, okay, well, what else can we bring to bear that like HyperLiquid doesn't have today, right? It's Visa rails, access to, millions of merchants globally, access to exchanges, bringing traditional institutional spot products into the Hyper EVM. So, we've been talking with a number of, Centrifuge, came out yesterday. We're talking with a number of providers. I would love to say more about Van Eck, but unfortunately they are very much a TradFi firm and will not let me say anything publicly. But look, you can imagine we would have conversations with them, BlackRock, everyone else, right, to really bring these guys to the table. Because if we think about like HyperLiquid, it's obviously been a tremendous success, but this is like still early innings, right? Like if you look at like Binance OI or like the trading volumes of traditional exchanges, like if you ask Jeff, that's probably his fucking North Star, right? And so you need to bring institutional partners and assets to this ecosystem if you really want it to scale, right? And I think that's where we can come in and really add a tremendous amount of value. Look, I think probably the ideal scenario is you have a number of these proposals that can sort of come together in some form, some shape or another, because like you bring like the whole weight of some of these to bear, and it's going to be nothing but good for the HyperLiquid ecosystem. And so that's like where I would say like we slot in. Obviously, like there's a matrix of who's maybe more community oriented versus maybe who's the safer operator and who's done this and can maybe bring other institutions. So it'll be up to the community to sort of see what they want, right? Do you want to index on teams that can bring a lot of domain expertise to this specific product and a lot of other support, or index towards community teams that have been with HyperLiquid for a very, very long time, or super dedicated to the ecosystem, but might be outsourcing this product? So we'll see, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, we just got a few minutes left before we keep it rolling here, and I wanted to give you a chance to expand on what I thought was a pretty important part of the proposal. You mentioned it again here, and it's the potential conflict of interest from an entity that comes in and issues the stablecoin as a method to vampire attack a lot of stablecoins away from HyperLiquid's ecosystem and take it onto one of its own competing products. And I think you made kind of a subtle nod to this in your proposal. You said Agora is a neutral issuer without its own settlement network or brokerage, e.g. Paxos. Like, is that what you're kind of pointing at, is the potential conflict of interest here? And why is it such a potential, like such a concern that, Paxos has its own brokerage? How do you think that might play out?
So I actually don't think Paxos is really like the real threat here, because similar to us, they don't have their own chain or ecosystem. They of course have their brokerage product, but like being intellectually honest, I don't really think that competes with HyperLiquid spot markets, even though it does a little bit of the same stuff, right? What I was really actually calling out was like Stripe, right? Like Tempo just was announced last week. Like, these guys are playing to win, right? They put on like a happy face. We want to, work with a bunch of different, parties and build this multi-party network. We're not like the bad guys. Anyone that comes from like fintech or Silicon Valley will tell you that the Stripe team is like the most ruthless people in fintech. And I wanted to really just call that out. Like, it's like, okay, like you're going to cede potentially the biggest asset in your ecosystem to someone that is a direct competitor and has a conflict. And I think we sort of, and like really the other considerations of other proposals we outlined was really at that, right? And so maybe even like going back to just like, the community alignment, I think the native markets team is super community aligned. I said this in another post this morning. What I would encourage them to do if they win is to actually maybe work with someone that is a bit more neutral, has GSIBs, and has much more robust financial service infrastructure. Look, it could be us, it could be Paxos, it could be someone else. I don't care. Like, this is something that it was really important to get right.
Yeah.
And so like, I would really urge the native markets team to maybe rethink who they're using on the financial infrastructure side. And so that's really what it was focused on. I think it's time for people to wake up. Otherwise, like, all of crypto is going to be owned by one company, and I don't want that to happen.
So would you say that Paxos and Agora are better positioned than Frax to do USDH?
I think we're regulated ourselves. We have bank accounts in our own name. So from a financial operations perspective, I think that's certainly the case.
Okay. There's some weird comments going around about Dragonfly being investors in Rain and Agora. And this guy, Alex, again, this guy keeps giving you a whole handful, but he's saying,
this guy really doesn't like us. I don't know, like it's funny. It's either us or Matt Siegel. I don't know but it's funny.
I know.
I try to be polite with him.
Yeah, and Rob from Dragonfly stood up for you guys and whatnot. But yeah, basically, I mean, I just think that that's that. But there were some interesting comments on this, and one was about changing the structure or the rev share in the future. Let's say you guys win. How dedicated are you to keeping 100% of the rev share to HyperLiquid? Is there plans to change that?
We don't plan to make any money on this. Like, and people are kind of like, oh, the net revenue. We're not making money on this. 100% of the revenue would go back to the community in some form or another. I think what would be really cool is to do this on like a quarterly governance vote, right? It's like, because you can really clearly, like, we can, we have accounting team. We do this in a very rigid way. It's like, this is what we made every single day from USDH, and vote on it. How should this get sliced and diced? Like 20% go to the assistance funds, 60% of stake, right? Stakers is all like, I think it's up in the air, but we are 100% committed to giving 100% of the revenue, back to the community, in whatever form the governance sort of decides. Yeah. And maybe that's what we do, is we do set up quarterly. For us, like, this is clearly, we just want to run it as a public good and deliver maximum value back to the community.
Yeah, and so this is obviously a win for HyperLiquid because of kind of bringing this into their own stack.
It's great. Like, native markets, I think, was going to do like 50%, and then Paxos and us came in and we're like, no, like, 95, 100% or bust. And so no one's making money on this. No one should make money on this at this point, right?
And so at this point, so how does this benefit whoever ends up winning? Let's say it is Agora, right? You guys aren't going to be making anything from the net revenue, but how does it help advance Agora's interests?
Look, I think for us, obviously, like it's an opportunity to like for me, it's personally very cool. Like the reason I've been in crypto since 2016. The reason I left to start my own company is I feel like we're in a once in a generation transformation of financial markets and payment rails, right? It's going to last for 30 years, very similar to like how cloud software has just eaten on-prem and human-driven workflows the last 30 years. And like, I just want to spend my life being a part of that. So for me personally, it would just be an incredible opportunity, I think, to do like a public good service. I think for like the company itself, obviously, like many people within the firm interact with HyperLiquid or have friends that are in the community or run companies or validators within the community. And so for them, it's like personally very, very fun as well. And then obviously it's great brand value, right? Like HyperLiquid is the most important perp dex in crypto, right? Like by far. And so, us, I think proving and, that our battle tested infrastructure can support something like HyperLiquid would be a huge win for us. And so that's how I see it. I think we have a great proposal. I think there's some other great proposals out there. I think at the end of the day, it's great that HyperLiquid is going to get 100% of the revenue, or should, right? Given the proposals and that it's generated so much interest in the community.
One last thing for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please, just if so, I saw Mike Dudas and 6Man Ventures went out and said that they just bought a ton of hype over the last, I don't know, some time period. How will your personal or how will the people around you's contributions to the hype ecosystem in terms of actually owning the asset, participating in the hyper EVM, and kind of seeding that ecosystem be affected if you guys win this?
Yeah, so Mike obviously worked at Paxos, right? But for us, I mean, I think Paradigm is probably like the biggest holder of like hype on earth, right? And they just led our seed round and are one of the most involved parties in Agora. Dragonfly is also super involved. And then again, like I don't work at Van Eck, but they are definitely involved and they're actively working with teams in the space. Unfortunately, they're a little bit more TradFi, so they're making me keep a lid on it. But
I gotta call Pranav.
Everyone we know.
Like, all right, man.
Yeah,
let's
dude,
go.
just call.
Come on, Pranav. Let's go.
You know these guys. You know Gabe. You know Pranav. Just call them, please. Like, I've been asking the last 12 hours to stay more, and compliance is saying no. So it is what it is. But like that's how you operate a real business actually too is keeping mum on certain things that you're doing. But that's how we're involved, and a lot of the people around us are involved, and they'll continue to be.
Beautiful. Nick, that's all I had. Thanks for your time, man. Looking forward to hopping in on some of these spaces later this week, and thanks for sharing your perspective and your insights, and for the weekend proposal. I know it's a journey, but I hope it works out for you, and thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
All right, Nick. See you
Good
soon,
luck.
buddy. Cheers. All right, Rob. Initial takeaways, thoughts on Nick. What's your take?
What I'm trying to take away from each of these is the unique advantage that each of them serve to the HyperLiquid ecosystem. I think Nick is very keyed in on his relationship with some of the institutional partners. Rain is a big one. I don't know if Rain is a unique differentiator to Agora's proposal. I think a couple of the other proposals also mentioned that they work with Rain. And so, Rain is obviously important because their debit card infrastructure spans multiple continents, several countries, and they're tight with Visa. So USDH can then span globally and scale with Visa's network as a result of working with an issuer that has a nice relationship with Rain. But again, I don't think that's a unique differentiator for Agora. One thing that he mentioned was that they have partners that are looking to commit 9 figures, so $100 million of capital on day one in liquidity. I think that's pretty unique. I don't know if these other issuers are looking at something similar.
Well, the reason why I asked that question at the end was just like, I was trying to figure out, like, if they win, are they just going to be massive stewards of the HyperLiquid ecosystem and, basically buy more hype? but obviously he can't just answer that straight up. But all right, we got Bo in the background. Bo is the co-founder of Paxos Labs. It's funny that I just asked Nick about Mike Dudas's take, and then he's like, yeah, he used to work at Paxos. Classic Mike. Gotta love it. We got Bo in the background. We'll get him up and we'll talk all things Paxos proposals and more. Bo, welcome to the show. And I'm sure it's been a busy weekend.
Andy, Rob, thanks for having me. And it has been. The team and I were actually doing our offsite down in Mexico, and we were all flying back on Saturday. And so Friday night, we went to dinner, and then it was heads down. We saw the proposal came out, moved quickly. We're scrambling at the airport, getting proposals out, Discord comments up. It was crazy, but a lot of fun.
Yeah,
good, man.
That's pretty convenient to have a war room spun up in Mexico City.
Right. Yeah, it was actually great. We were all there together. We took one break to go get dinner, and then we were back at it around the dining table. It's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah,
crazy,
man.
but a lot of fun.
Well, Bo, I want to give you the chance to open up, right? Opening kind of statement here. You, from Paxos Labs perspective, obviously you guys decided that this was a venture worth endeavoring on the weekend. Talk to us about your perspective. Give us the Paxos Labs viewpoint on why Paxos Labs is the right fit for this kind of USDH stablecoin, and just kind of walk us through some of your storyline to getting to this point.
Yeah, totally. And I think this proposal seems like it came out of the blue for a lot of people, but I will say it's something that, HyperLiquid as an ecosystem is something we've been thinking about. And obviously Paxos has been doing stablecoins for a really long time. But the background is, right, Paxos started in 2012 and the position was always, hey, there's a better financial system to be had. And really the thought was, our belief was that better financial system was going to be served through the existing winning platforms, right? We're going to go work with the platforms that have the users and help them build on top of our infrastructure. And specifically, we believed that infrastructure needed to be regulated infrastructure. The hypothesis was hey, to really bring on billions of users onto crypto native rails, that's not going to happen in a completely unregulated way, right? And so Paxos has done the hard work, was the first crypto company to get a charter from the NYDFS. We have our New York State charter. We've issued stablecoins out of Singapore, the EU, Abu Dhabi. We are the only globally regulated issuer. But we've learned a lot over the last kind of 10 years of issuing stablecoins. And one of the things that we really learned was it is very hard to do stablecoin issuance right. Regulated, safe stablecoin issuance that enterprises will work with, right? But what we learned, through all of the launches, we did the Binance stablecoin, we did PayPal stablecoin, we've done USDG most recently with Robinhood, Kraken, Anchorage, a few others, is that launching is just day one. And this has kind of come up in a lot of different conversations. People are so concerned with the details of which regulator are you going to use? How's this going to work? How's that going to work? And it's getting to launch is really hard. Don't get me wrong. But it's what happens after that? And so we actually started on this kind of journey end of last year. So I was the product lead for launching several Paxos stablecoins. I worked on PYUSD. I worked on USDL, which is our yield-bearing stablecoin. I worked on USDG. And time again, the same problem came up. It's we do this really hard work of getting regulated, getting the banking infrastructure set up, but then what, right? And what we started to think about was hey, a lot of the growth today is coming from on-chain native ecosystems, right? And obviously HyperLiquid is blowing up. And so we had our eyes on that. And so what we actually decided to do at the start of last year is start this Paxos Labs initiative. And the entirety of the Paxos Labs initiative was, how do we go grow stablecoins and stablecoin adoption in kind of more crypto native ecosystems? Obviously, Paxos was very focused on enterprises, the PayPals, the interactive brokers, the new banks of the world. We kind of figured we need to bring both these things together. So we started working on this initiative at the end of last year. At the start of this year, we got the opportunity to meet Molecular Labs, which is a team that's been building in the HyperLiquid ecosystem from day one. They're the infrastructure behind LHype and WHLP. Their vision of kind of building utility, tokenized asset utility in ecosystems really aligned with what we were looking to do. And so we entered an agreement to acquire them, I want to say in June. And we've been in kind of in the closing process. We were going to do an announcement, but obviously like this whole thing came out of the blue and we had to, cat's out of the bag now. But we have an awesome team that's been building in HyperLiquid since day one. And so, our position is like, hey, like bringing together Paxos's regulated expertise of doing all the hard stuff that takes you to get to day one with the team that we brought on in Paxos Labs, we can actually help USDH scale beyond just kind of like, hey, we have a regulated issuance.
Yeah, I mean, you guys mentioned across the board some of the Genius Act compliance, some of the other key benefits in the actual proposal, and I think Rob's probably got that up. While Rob's scoping some of the deets on that, just kind of more broad question following this opening statement vibe per se is just curious, like why, like what this ticker in particular means to Paxos Labs and to yourself, Bo. There's no reason why you can't bid for a different ticker later and still get a lot of the same perks in the HyperLiquid ecosystem, spot quote assets, perp margin access, these types of things. Why does this USDH ticker matter to you specifically? And then I think we'll dive into some of the nitty gritty of your proposal and look at the others and see what the community has to say.
Yeah. So in full transparency, we've already bought tickers that we were already planning to launch a stablecoin HyperLiquid, right? And so I think with this USDH proposal, like our hope was like we could bring the community with us, right? There wasn't really an opportunity to kind of like put our foot forward and kind of explain like how we thought we could bring a great stablecoin to HyperLiquid. And this is kind of like the perfect opportunity. We've already bought tickers. We've already been doing work in the background. And so regardless of where this vote goes, we're bringing a stablecoin to HyperLiquid. Yep. And so this is kind of a great opportunity to do it with the community. And honestly, one of my favorite parts of this whole process has been, there's been great questions in the Discord. There's been great questions on Twitter. And as someone that has built products and shipped stable coins, getting feedback before you launch is the best thing you could possibly ask for, right? Because you do all this work, you launch this, you might have built a bunch of stuff that people don't actually want or doesn't address kind of the needs of the community. And so this proposal process is an awesome way for us to connect with the community, understand what they really want, and build the right product for them, right? And build a product that serves HyperLiquid. And so, yes, you're right. It's just a ticker. But we see it as an opportunity of like, great, if we get this ticker and we can really build this with the community, amazing. If not, we're still going to bring a stablecoin to HyperLiquid. And, we welcome the community to give us feedback. We want to build the thing that makes sense, that benefits the holders of Hype, benefits the ecosystem, benefits everyone building on HyperLiquid, whether it's with this ticker or not.
Yeah. One of the things that we're trying to do on this show today is identify the unique value propositions that each of these proposals bring. One of the things that sticks out is the multiple billions of dollars in stablecoins that you guys have launched so far. You mentioned PayPal, USD, Binance USD. There's several others as well. And so I'm curious, how does the network effects and the liquidity in stablecoins that you've already launched, not just the experience, because I think a lot of the proposed issuers have experience launching stablecoins, but they haven't quite launched them at the scale that you have stablecoins in existing circulation. So is there benefits that you can provide through linking together these stablecoins? Is it greater clearing? Is it settlement? Is it lower fees? Like, is there general network effects that you can bring as a result of having this network of stablecoins that is already eclipsed billions of dollars?
100%, right? And that's part of the vision. And I'll give some concrete examples here, right? So USDG, and I heard you guys talking about RAIN before I jumped on. Not only does RAIN accept USDG, but USDG can be settled with Visa. Visa accepts USDG as a settlement asset. Now, if we are the issuer of USDG and USDH, right, and it's all on Paxos infrastructure, we can enable one-to-one interop, right? Because if you think about if these are two different issuers, right, the only way you can have true interop is like the underlying base layer of banking needs to talk to each other. Again, then you're back to kind of like existing banking rails. But really in this world, we're just moving between our own bank accounts, right, our own custodians. And so we can offer true one-to-one interop, not only between USDH and USDG, but any of our other stablecoins. And the reason we think the HyperLiquid ecosystem is so interesting is we do think it's different. It's kind of like a disjoint addressable market than like who we typically work with. And our view is like we can be the perfect connectivity point between kind of this really crypto native HyperLiquid ecosystem and the enterprises we work with, right? Whether that's Visa, whether that's MasterCard, PayPal, Interactive Brokers, I can go on and like kind of the huge list of enterprise names. And so it's not just about launching the USDH token into the HyperLiquid ecosystem. It's like, hey, we're going to go connect this and make this the connection point between the entire financial system, right? And I think that's where it gets really compelling. You're absolutely right. Like network effects of this thing, especially as we're the issuer of multiple assets across multiple kind of like corners of the financial system, we can connect all of this together and create kind of a bigger outcome for everyone.
Yeah.
Well then, Bo, I just have to counter that with just a more very objective question here, which is if you feel so strongly about this, the other proposals are not taking any cut. They're giving everything back to the ecosystem. You guys are the only one that is doing a 5% or 95%, retribution to the community, 5% not. If you feel so strongly about this, why is this the case? Why not just give all of the revenues from the stablecoin back to the community and kind of be in the same league as the other two major proposals today?
Totally. And I think it's a fair question. What I will say is I think incentives are a very powerful thing. And I actually think it's not good if the issuer of this doesn't make any money from it. Because what's going to happen is if it really is not driving the business for the issuer in any way, right, it becomes very likely they walk away from this and it doesn't actually become something they support for a long time, right? Look, we want to give as much away to the community, to the validators, to hype holders as we possibly can. But I think, we need to have some skin in the game, honestly, right? And I think there's a couple ways to do that, right? It's from the revenue from the stablecoin itself. We plan on obtaining some hype for our own balance sheet, right? And we can kind of contribute that way.
There you go.
We're not tied to the model. And again, like part of this is like, one of the pieces of feedback, and I'll just come out and say it, is like, there's been so much around like, why isn't this going to the assistant fund, right? I think that's been some great feedback, and we are going to iterate on that and include that in our updated proposal. It is something we're completely open to doing, right? With that said, I think the issuer needs some skin in the game, but also the platforms or the ecosystem players that are going to integrate USDH need some skin in the game. They need some incentive, right? And this is, again, like from all the learning we have from our stablecoin issuance, right? People don't just like flip their entire platform to something else overnight, right? And you need to have some sort of incentive to drive that. And really our goal is like, hey, if we can get USDH integrated into the entire ecosystem very quickly, we'll move to like 100% to AF. Great. Like, right. Or like 99% to AF, like amazing. Right. And so love the idea of it going to assistant fund. I think we need to be like pragmatic about like, how do we actually get this thing to grow and be big and become kind of the standard stablecoin in the ecosystem. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah.
And I mean, I think it totally makes sense. I can imagine that in any sort of business line, if it's just a expense or a red line on the balance sheet, there's only so much that one can do in the sake of like alignment or whatever it is per se. But it seems like Agora and Frax don't really care. It seems like they're willing to eat that. Well, so I'm curious to see what your updated proposal has kind of built into it.
And it seems that these other proposals, they're bent on getting some indirect benefit as a result of just broadening their stablecoin issuance.
Right. Like Nick was saying, like, oh, don't trust the chain. Like if there's already a chain that wants a vampire attack into HyperLiquid, and I think he was talking about Tempo, maybe he was alluding to Frax a bit, but it seems like Paxos and Agora are kind of separate from that.
So, Bo, I wanted to kind of frame this question. How does it work with some of the existing stablecoins that you guys have launched? Take one, for example, maybe you can explain a couple of the different structures. Do you guys take, fees from those guys and that's how you're monetizing it? Or if you're not, how do you monetize an asset where you have all this issuance, but you're not directly collecting fees?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like the business model here is asset management, right? And so you're taking bips off of kind of the kind of like yield generated by the asset. In almost all of our issuances, we share the majority of the benefit with our issuance partner. But yeah, that's our business model, right? It's asset management plus technology on top, and all wrapped with regulatory compliance. And so that's the business model. And that I think like anyone that's in this business will tell you, like, that's kind of how it goes. The interesting development has been like, Tether obviously keeps everything, right? I think Tether is in like a unique position. I don't think it makes sense over like a medium to long-term time frame that stable coin economics don't look like dollar economics, right? In a world where like if there's dollars out there and people are getting nothing, I don't think that makes sense, right? But I think there is like it looks a lot more like kind of asset management on tokenized money market funds or money market funds generally.
Mm-hmm. And another unique value proposition that I saw in your proposal that I didn't see in others was the second to last paragraph. And it says that you plan to add support for Hype as an asset within Paxos' brokerage infrastructure, powers crypto trading for platforms such as PayPal, Venmo, several others, interactive brokers. And so these other issuers, they don't have their own brokerage. How could that help the HyperLiquid ecosystem by getting added into Paxos' brokerage?
Yeah, so the Paxos runs crypto brokerage as a service, right? So we don't have a brokerage offering that is directly trying to go get end users or compete with, whatever, HyperLiquid or even like the Krakens and the Binance of the world. It's crypto brokerage as a service, right? And the idea is like, hey, on the PayPal app, on the Venmo app, on the Nubank app, customers want to buy Bitcoin, customers want to buy ETH, and we power that. And we actually route some of our flow, yes, to our own exchange, but we also work with a bunch of different exchanges. And so it's really like a brokerage as a service offering. And the idea here is like, yes, we're going to add support for Hype to our infrastructure. Does that mean everyone turns it on day one? No, but like, look, if you believe Hype is like one of the 3 blue chip tokens in the world, those people are going to want to turn it on, right? Because their customers are going to want access to it. And at the end of the day, everyone is customer led. So by us adding support for Hype to our crypto brokerage as a service offering, everyone that uses us as a crypto brokerage platform can now enable their users to buy and hold Hype. And so obviously, we've got existing massive players on this, everyone from Mercado Libre to Venmo to interactive brokers. But what I will say is over the last 6 months, this business has completely taken off, and some of the largest names in finance are integrating today with Paxos crypto brokerage. And so I think that's going to be even bigger. And the benefit to the community is like, hey, we're increasing the amount of people that can access Hype, right? And they can access it in their everyday apps, right? They don't need to be crypto native to get it, right? They can access it in their mobile apps. They can access it in their payment apps. And I think that's a really compelling use case because, those are people that probably wouldn't have access to it otherwise.
Yeah. Bo, real quick, you put out a tweet saying about how you guys didn't mention any of the partners that you guys were going to work with. I hear now from you that you're going to take the kind of feedback from the community as well as some internal discussions and do another proposal. What are the core changes that you aim to make in that proposal, and which partners will be included?
Yeah, look, I think I don't think we're going to come back with a proposal that lists a bunch of partner names. We have a ton of partners, right? We work with Rain, we work with Layer Zero, we work with we work with everyone. Like, I really want to keep the focus on this to like, hey, we're trying to build USDH to be this kind of like neutral base layer asset in the HyperLiquid ecosystem, and the focus should be on that. We can talk about partners, totally work with all those guys. They're awesome. We talk to them all the time. But I don't think our proposal needs to focus on that, in my opinion. And just because the feedback from the community we've gotten hasn't been like, oh, who's your on-ramp partner? Who's your debit card issuer? It's really more been around like, hey, how are you going to ensure you stay aligned with the community? How do you think about kind of some of this assistant fund stuff? And so I think some of our iteration will really be around kind of showing the community the balance in our thinking of we want Hype holders to benefit. And so we can talk about this AF thing, but really outlining kind of like our perspective and learnings really of like, how do we grow this thing? Because you're right, it's just a ticker. We can go build it and launch it and it sputters out and it's like, it was a waste of everyone's time. If we're going to go build this, we want this to be the asset. We want this to be a multi-billion-dollar, $10 billion asset. And I want to make sure the community understands like our approach here, right? It's like, this is not just about us being like, oh, it's 95% or 97%. It's like, we have a plan of how we're going to make this really big. With the end goal of this fully benefiting the community and Hype holders, right? And like outlining that, I don't think we did, to be honest, the best job of outlining that journey we want to go on in our initial proposal. So I think a lot of the focus will be around that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good kind of follow-up point here, because Rob and I have been in the HyperLiquid community for some time now. We were talking to their team in summer of 23, all the way into the token launch, and have been big investors into the token, and just kind of like wanted to represent the community today. And I think like the main question that some of the prominent members of the community wanted us to ask is kind of aligned with what you're just saying, which is, okay, you guys have a plan, you guys want to grow this thing, but what is this like? What in this lens of your growth vision? What does being Hyperliquid native or aligned mean to you and Paxos, and how important is that versus being like big company, big institutional focused? How do you guys kind of navigate this kind of juxtaposition of two different types of communities and character archetypes and all of that? And what does being Hyperliquid native and aligned mean to you in this lens of growth?
Totally. And I think a lot of this is why we created an entire new team. This is why Paxos Labs exist, to embody some of this kind of, different ethos that you might see in a Hyperliquid like community than you might see like when you're working with giant enterprises. And I think, I can't point to anything else besides like the team that is actually working on this has been on Hyperliquid since day one, right? They have been the team that's built infrastructure behind LHype, behind WHLP, has actually worked with multiple stablecoins in the ecosystem, including USDT0, including USDHL, as a part of the WHLP product. And so this team has been building in Hyperliquid since day one. And that's why we brought them on. We want that DNA. We want that team to be a part of the team that goes on this USDH journey. And so we get to benefit from a lot of Paxos's expertise, background, history, regulatory, compliance, legal, banking, everything that you would want from a world-class issuer. But we have a dedicated team. I'm here in the office with them in Williamsburg. We have like our own spot, Paxos Labs. We're together every day in person. And, this team like kind of lives and breathes this ecosystem. And hopefully the community can see that with all the contributions they've had to date.
Yeah. One last thing in your proposal, the last paragraph says, regardless of the outcome of this community vote, you're committed to continue building in the Hyperliquid ecosystem, stay aligned with the ecosystem-led philosophy. And so, obviously the partnership that you mentioned with the team there, is there anything else that you have in mind, for if the vote doesn't go your way, what else do you have here that you have in mind as far as like how you're going to continue to support the ecosystem? Anything that you haven't mentioned already?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, and this is why kind of like we think stable coins are so important, is like we think they're the foundational asset in any ecosystem. We still plan to bring a stable coin to Hyperliquid regardless how this vote goes. But right. Again, like to my point in the beginning, like Paxos has a lot of experience issuing stable coins. I think the thing that we really want to show is like and then what, right? And we're going to build products around that stable coin, whether that's unique yield bearing products, whether that's different ways to kind of take out leverage. I think there's like the utility on the stablecoin after is just as important as like getting to that day one of compliant regulated stablecoin issuance, again, which we are very good at and we have the best track record in the world of doing. But what we're out here to prove is like we are going to build products that complement and grow that asset even further and grow stablecoins in the ecosystem. And so that's what we're really looking to do, and that's kind of what Paxos Labs is all about, and that's why Paxos created Paxos Labs.
And Bo, when it comes to actually seeing the fruits of the stablecoin kind of like growth here, what would you say is your multi-year vision for this stablecoin? Like Hyperliquid is aiming to be the chain to house all of finance, kind of TM, right? Soon TM. What is the 1, 3, 5 year potential kind of outlook for where you think Paxos can take USDH, and thus how you can help impact the community over the next 1 to 3 years?
Yeah, totally. And I think this is honestly the strength of Paxos's proposal, right? It's how do we take this beyond just an exchange asset? How do we take this beyond just an asset that you trade with? I mentioned before, right? Like some of our stable coins are already settled by Visa. We're working with the largest payment networks. We're working with the largest payment processors. We have on and off ramp providers in every corner of the world. And so the goal is like, yes, this is going to be a core asset on Hyperliquid and the exchange, but how do we get to a world where people are getting paid in USDH? How do we get to a world where people are buying their groceries with USDH? How do we get to a world where people are saving in USDH? And by people, I don't just mean crypto native users. I mean the user that doesn't even know there's a stablecoin in the background, right? They're using their mobile app in some developing country. how do we get USDH to be the asset behind that, right? And again, like the value prop there is like, not only are we giving people something they want, the demand for tokenized dollars is massive. We're driving the benefit of that adoption and distribution back to the Hyperliquid ecosystem, right? And hopefully creating a really virtuous flywheel. Because we agree, we think Hyperliquid is going to be a central part of kind of the financial system of tomorrow. And that's why we're here. And that's why we're going to keep building.
And just one last thing for you. You mentioned that some of the thought process was, okay, we want to further allocate into this space, into Hyperliquid. You know, is there anything that you can kind of share on that? At least what's going on in the background, or at least kind of in your thought processes as to, all right, we want to be owners of this ecosystem as well and participate in, you know, Hyper EVM, the DeFi apps there, as well as be users of Hypercore. When you mentioned that, you know, you guys want to come in, you know, with some size into the ecosystem, you know, maybe you could just elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, so we have our existing products right now with LHype and WHLP, and we're going to keep investing in those and growing those assets. I think what we really are interested in doing, you know, beyond the stablecoin stuff, I do think there's some interesting partners that we're talking to right now in the Hyperliquid ecosystem, where we build utility on top of either Hype or Hype stablecoins, right? And so again, like this goes back to kind of the mission of Paxos Labs and why it was created, is like, we're here to kind of like build the like utility that comes after having the asset, right? And so a lot of the conversations we're having with the ecosystem are around that, right? Like unique yield opportunities on stablecoins, unique looping strategies around Hype. And I think taking kind of like, great, you have the base asset, how do I do some more stuff with that? Is kind of where our heads are at.
Yeah. So certainly a massive opportunity here. Like NASDAQ and, you know, is talking about bringing all of these markets on chain, and Hyperliquid is a great destination for a lot of those markets to land. So it's $5.5 billion of stablecoin liquidity in Hyperliquid markets. Now, who knows where this is going to end up 6, 12, 18 months from now. Best of luck in the proposal, and thank you so much for coming on.
But actually one last thing for you, Rob, if you don't mind. Agora was getting a lot of pushback about kind of like this Dragonfly influence, them having their own stable coin, some of their team kind of giving giving pushback to Hyperliquid in the early days. I know we're all friends here, we're all in the same industry, but do you feel that Agora has been unfairly kind of singled out on the timeline, or do you think that there's kind of some substance to there being a lot of moving parts behind the scenes of their proposal?
Look, I think to a certain extent they have been unfairly singled out, right? I think there are a lot of like, everyone is invested in everyone and everyone works with everyone in this space.
In the space, like, yeah, exactly.
It's like anyone can dig up a conflict of interest if they dig deep enough, kind of thing. And so, look, I know Nick and the Agora team. I think they mean well. They've got like kind of the right mission. I know the Dragonfly team, and I think they really are believers in this. And so, to a certain extent, yes, maybe they've been unfairly called out, but that's just kind of like the world of Twitter today. It's like someone finds a thread and they pull it until can't be pulled any further.
Yeah. All right, Bo. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it. We'll see you soon, and enjoy the week. I know it's going to be slammed.
It'll be a fun one. Sure. Take care, guys.
See you, Bo.
Cheers. Well, Rob, thoughts, takeaways?
I think Paxos has a strong proposal.
Yeah. That their stablecoin success in the past. They should have just done 100%. I don't get why they not just do 100%.
Yeah, I mean, how significant? I guess when we extrapolate out, I mean, $5.5 billion of stablecoin liquidity now. This is going to end up doubling, tripling, quadrupling in the near future.
Yeah, how much does it really matter? Right. So we said there's 200 million on Hyperliquid, right, or something? Right now,
there's
I think it's
$5.5 billion of USDC. Yes, primarily USDC on Hyperliquid now. Once they launch USDH, all of that's going to get collateralized. They're going to generate interest on the reserves
on the $5.5 billion.
Exactly, 4% of that is going to give them about 220 million. I think that's math
per year.
Yeah.
No, 4%
of $5.5 billion. Someone with a calculator.
Someone ChatGPT that. Come on, you're the math guy. Up next, we have Sam. Get back to us on that, Rob. Sam is the Frax founder, who has just updated their proposal. We got the updated link here from one guy on the Frax team. I believe it was their head of comms. And yeah, we saw some of the updates. Really, the big thing being the federal regulated bank issuers. So, guys, you know the vibes. We are going to roll into Sam's opening remarks, give him a chance to kind of open up, and then get into the questions that we've asked each guest here. We're just going to give Rob one more second to give us the final calculation here. I think he's dialed in right now. Sam, good to have you on.
220 million. So we are doing math.
Okay, good. Well, that's a lot of profit to be made. So, Sam, good to have you
on the show.
What's up, guys? Happy Monday. It's good to be back.
Yeah, man. Busy weekend for you, I bet.
A lot. Yeah. Well, exciting weekend. There's so much stuff going on with this that I'm almost like holy crap, it's going to be like every day there's going to be a bunch of stuff coming out, and then it's going to be over before everyone even knows it, you know?
Yeah. I was talking to Rob from Dragonfly about it, and he was like, yeah, it's just going to only get more dramatic. And I think part of that is you guys changed your proposal today or updated it. Let's say Paxos Bo just came on saying that they're going to update their proposal shortly and release that. So we've started the first two with just kind of an opening remarks. Would love to get your perspective for Frax's USDH vision, kind of how, like, what the storyline is for kind of inserting or, you know, entering up proposal here, and just kind of open the air for us here.
Yeah, for sure. So let me actually give some background of like how we got here as like Frax. As a lot of people might know from like last cycle, Frax is one of the biggest decentralized stablecoins when we launched, right? The original Frax decentralized like dollar stablecoin. We went all the way up to 3 billion or just under total supply. So we really do have the infrastructure, knowledge, engineering, integrations to run a multi-billion-dollar stablecoin. We actually started moving more towards a regulated and Genius compliant model, as you guys know, with Frax USD, FRX USD, which we started actually working on this in 2024, before like the Genius Act or the name or whatever actually even became a big thing, because we believe that the base underlying digital dollar of like an ecosystem should be basically risk-free. You can build the yield stuff on top of it. I think that structural bet looks like it's probably correct, because you can see Athena also having USDTB, which is really cool, right? If you didn't need that, right, why would you even have like an underlying base, right, like risk-free fiat coin essentially, right? And one of the cool things was when the Genius bill started to take form, right, with the new administration, I actually went to DC with Travis, my co-founder, and we actually helped directly do a lot of the definition of a Genius stablecoin, a payment stablecoin, all of this stuff, and we've been very, very active actually in the regulatory space. So we built this infrastructure for Frax USD. We have a full 20 chain mesh coverage, right? That's powered underlying by layer 0, but it's a sovereign hosted version where the OFTs, everything they're underlying, owned by whichever entity that they want. We own the Frax USD. USDH can be owned by HyperLiquid, hype holders, stakers. And the interesting thing is we thought, well, we have this infrastructure, we have the engineering and the name brand and the Lindy and the resources that was previously a $3 billion decentralized stablecoin that everyone knows as a household name in DeFi. Why not open this up and allow other stablecoins to actually be used and issued through this infrastructure and with our partners, right? And so when we started working on Frax USD, we obviously approached institutional RWA issuers that are Genius compliant, institutions that can actually issue different kinds of Genius compliant collateral, like 2A-7 money market fund securities, treasury bills, all of these things that are required to have a fully risk-free compliant fiat coin, right? And so we have these relationships, this infrastructure, the audited smart contracts, all of it. And so we said, well, this doesn't only have to be for Frax USD, right? Like we don't have to just actually do all this work for just Frax USD. And so we started actually thinking, what are the entities? And this is a few months ago, by the way. Like, we had no idea the USDH thing. I don't think many people did. That was going to come up last week or whatever, a few days ago. And so we started approaching different entities like, hey, we can actually help you issue your own and have it be one-to-one composable with all of the underlying. Frax USD is another stablecoin, right? One-to-one composable. All of these RWAs that are Genius compliant, right? Like USTB from Superstate and Fidelity, BlackRock, BitL, all of these things, right? And so we can connect all this infrastructure in a one-to-one way. It's audited. It's Frax is like a prestigious and pristine history of no funds lost in any of our history, right? Like our 5-year history. And so why not open this up, right? This is valuable infrastructure, and being able to actually have multiple stablecoins be one-to-one fungible with each other is actually of unique value of money, right? The whole point of money is the more fungible and liquid it is between all the other things, the next marginal user that accepts it or holds it has more utility, right, for that person. And so that was basically our vision. And so when this came out, obviously it surprised us, because I actually had talked to Julian, I believe he's like one of the HyperLiquid core team members a long time ago, like I think over 6 months ago, about something like this, where I was like, what is HyperLiquid's view on stablecoins? You guys obviously are a huge user of USDC. I don't know, like one of my original thoughts, to be honest, was like, maybe Jeff and Jeremy have some kind of like NDA and like secret like deal of like there just is yield share. I can't imagine you mid 9 figures of like annual revenue, you're just like, nah, whatever, right? So like I was like, I would love to help if I could just know I'm not here to sell you anything. Yep. In fact, like I want to know what like a visionary guy like Jeff or you guys at HyperLiquid, what are you guys think? How are you guys thinking about it? Like educate me. And it didn't seem like, at least from what I was told, obviously like they might have internal plans or something. I don't know. Now actually it seems like they're totally true and transparent. It's like they're like, we're not thinking about it right now. When we're thinking about Bitcoin stuff, you'll know. And obviously, I think the world knows now.
200 million is on the table at current numbers.
Well, 200 million for the HyperLiquid community, as it should be, right? And so that's actually kind of important, because I think Frax was the first one, if I remember, to just be like 100% no yield share like intake, right? And I think like that is kind of important, because I think you were asking Bo, who I love. We've talked a lot, actually. We're trying to figure out how we can work together. This is one of the things that I was figuring out in terms of like philosophically. This stuff, obviously HyperLiquid is the biggest prize, but like, because it's obviously one of the biggest L1s in ecosystems in the crypto world. But I was thinking about it more generally from like a economic perspective. And I was like, if here's a thought experiment, if you had the right to issue all like Genius compliant stablecoins, like Robbie and Andy, like let's say for some reason like amazing, the law kind of gave that to you, in exchange you cannot take any revenue yield share from it, okay? Or nor can you charge like redemption, mint fees or whatever, just nothing from it. It kind of, you are enshrined to give this as a public good, so to speak, okay? Would you take it? Would you accept that? And everyone had to go through you, right? This is the thought experiment, right? The deal is they go through you guys, okay? You are the only issuer allowed to do this, like, in a regulated manner, because that's sort of de facto what's going on here. Even though they're like this, the USDH ticker, there'll be other stablecoins, of course there will, but like the reason everyone is so gung-ho about like pushing and competing here is like, this is most likely going to be the HyperLiquid stablecoin, right? Unless it really falls or something, right? So
I mean, we would, right?
Just finish up. Would you take the actual right to issue it? And I would. If I was like, Sam is the only one that can issue Genius compliant stablecoins, you are not allowed to legally take any revenue or mint redeem fees, right? But you're close to all of the flows. You're close to all of the flows that come in and out. You are essentially the clearinghouse for all Genius compliant stablecoins. Would you take it, but you're not allowed to take any revenue from it? I would. I don't know. Maybe some people would be like, oh no, like the only reason I would ever be interested in this is like if I can skim some T-bill yield off from the top or something like that. That's also like a legitimate potentially answer, but I would take it.
So Sam, you're saying the fulfillment, doing something meaningful, providing this service to the entire ecosystem, a very valuable service, that philosophically is enough for you to commit time, effort, resources? Or are you saying there's another method, an alternative way to monetize the flows, and that is how you're able to capitalize on providing this service?
Both, right? Like this is not like a charity. I'm not saying like that, right? But what I'm saying is that clearly, like just logically thinking about it, everyone is giving either 95 or something close to that, or like 100, like even like the first one, just say 100. Getting to be the in and out of the flows of one of the most important economic L1s is by itself valuable, right? And so that's actually what I was trying to say online as well, is like one of the most important things is to be who is actually a responsible steward, and like who actually what will they do with it, right? Will they actually help onboard more people that they, you know, wouldn't necessarily come to HyperLiquid? Like a lot of the things is like, you know, Frax is very, very good at DeFi, right? I think everyone knows that. In fact, like one of the first times when PYUSD launched from Paxos and PayPal, we actually helped them figure out how to navigate all the curve and DeFi stuff. And so I think one of the first PYUSD pools was actually a Frax and PYUSD stablecoin pool, actually. And so we are always at the forefront of like DeFi stuff. Obviously now it's more, we've leaned in on the frontier of like regulated payments, like risk digital dollars as well. I think obviously just being transparent, other teams might have like a stronger background in that area, right? Because they've started from there. But I think our DeFi crypto engineering, getting builders that would not otherwise come somewhere, are unmatched from the other, you know, the other guys.
This is something we were talking about before we had any guests on today, which was that the cultural fingerprint of, like, the cultural identity of HyperLiquid is one of airdrop farmers, power users. These are people that are engaged in on-chain DeFi. And I think that suits a crypto native company at the frontier of DeFi more so than it might suit a more buttoned up corporate company. Even though there might be more experience there, it actually more aligns with the community to go after and partner with a company that's more crypto native, and it's done this before on these rails rather than done it in the more regulated, compliant way.
Yes, that's correct. But I'd go even a step further too and say, like, it's interesting because how fast the proposal stuff is going, because on another level, like when we gave our like revised proposal today, like we actually clarified about how we would work with chartered bank issuer to issue this. And then we work with Stripe and Bridge. They've been our orchestration partner, right? Same with, I think Stripe and Bridge works with the Frontier Markets team. I think that they were one of the original proposal by Max Fige, I think. What I was thinking the other hour was like, a lot of these partners, regardless of who wins, right? Who's like name, it's not like they would refuse to like participate, right? So like if we win, right, Stripe and Bridge will work with us because they're already working with us. If they win, I think they would work with it. And I know certain people have different payment processor preferences or whatever, and there's like different concerns here or there. But the point is, if you ask, right, the point is they're all interested in being close to the flows, right?
Of course they're.
Yeah, and so the real thing you have to ask is, who's going to be a responsible steward of being close to the flows? And is there anything unique between any of the current ones that are some intangible strengths, like getting builders to come that would not have otherwise came? Or would there be, I don't know, extra things that other partners would not actually be able to do, right? Because I think all of us can make it Genius compliant. Frax USD is like compliant. We're working with actually like a issuer that will announce. This happened so fast that we can't actually say everything that we want to. But I think Genius compliance is like done. Is a done deal. If like you're competent, like the Paxos guys, they're world class. You know, everyone else, we know what to do. That's not really like that big of a deal. It's like table stakes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
With 100% yield share, that's kind of table stakes. Okay, 95%. I don't think that's going to be make or break or anything. You know, that's why we even said 100, because I'm like, why even be asked like about the last five bips or something, right? The most important thing is who can actually bring a coalition, essentially a coalition of the willing of builders, regulated entities, which I think everyone can, payment processors, which I think most people can just because it's hyperliquid, and who can actually create new innovative ways of making the most value for the hyperliquid community by being close stewards to the flows, right?
Right. And so when you're talking about being a steward of the flows, this is essentially scaling hyperliquid beyond and USDH beyond its current capacity. And so how would you get, and just to frame this completely, I think both of the proposed issuers that came on earlier in the show, Nick from Agora and Bo from Paxos, has both talked about Rain as a debit card partner to like they're plugged in with Visa. They can help expand that network. Is there a unique value proposition that you got? How will you guys steward USDH to help expand USDH beyond the hyperliquid ecosystem and essentially grow this pie so that the flows are greater than what hyperliquid's already built themselves?
Yeah. So here's the first question I'd pose back first before answering. Have we gotten the Rain guys, who are an awesome team, to say, hey, if Agora doesn't win, we refuse to work with USDH? Because I don't think they're going to say anything like that, right?
Absolutely.
Definitely not.
Right. So that's not right. So they, both of these guys said it, which makes it not unique. So it's almost like we're looking at these proposals and we're looking at the checkboxes like, okay, well, they both have that. They both have that. They both have 100%. It's all Genius compliant. So where's the uniqueness in these proposals?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you some examples where the uniqueness of these proposals. For example, what if one of these proposals, like Frax, maybe someone else, maybe like Athena, seems like they're going to propose something I've heard the rumblings of, but what if our idea for USDH is close to a consortium-based issuer, so that we first start, right, as if we win, for example, the proposal, but then we actually get as many issuers in a novel Genius compliant structure to be able to actually plug into USDH and as a extension, the hyperliquid network, right? Because they have to add hyperliquid support, all this stuff, so that it is kind of like even a better Libra, right? Like which everyone's talking about recently because of like tempo and this and that, and they build it in a way where you use hyperliquid's distribution and size to push the frontier of like a specific design where you can get as many issuers to onboard, be able to mint and redeem, to be able to get additional DeFi people to deploy on hyperliquid because of this structure, getting unique flywheel incentives, for example, that we're known for, but obviously Athena is even bigger right now, right? To be transparent, right? They're known for it as well, right? And so these are the things that are intangible, right? That are unique if you dig through the proposals between each other, right? Right? These are like between the lines of like, you have to kind of imagine what would stuff look like in a year, right? If Paxos won or Frax won or Athena, I think they're going to announce whatever they're going to do soon, right? And if Frax wins, I think the one thing to take away is that we would be trying to align as much of the participants as possible in an area where they integrate hyperliquid as a network. They integrate USDH across a wide range of places in ways that, like, for example, native consortium mint redeems with Genius compliant issuers, right? Additional DeFi that we don't see, for example, on Hyper EVM, but that we have connections to in our wide DeFi network, right? Those kind of things are kind of the intangible things that, like, just putting up a bunch of logos is not going to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Sam, what does mean what does being Hyperliquid native or aligned mean to you guys, and how important is that versus being a kind of big company, institutional focused? And I asked this in a more pointed way, which is that there has been pushback from Paxos and Agora about other teams that have their own chain or ecosystem or products trying to come in and kind of like vampire attack some of what Hyperliquid has already built. What is your vision for being Hyperliquid native and aligned, and kind of how do you fend off this kind of vampire attack accusation?
That's an interesting question, because I would love to actually ask, how would that even be possible? Like how exactly, what would we even say to get people to leave the largest perp like exchange ecosystem? And like that's kind of what I mean in terms of like uh being responsible stewards, because it's like that's so like interesting but egregious that it's like I feel like it would, we would not, no one would be that stupid to even kind of try to do anything like that, because the whole point of this is like, the more value you can create by being responsible stewards to the flows in and out of Hyperliquid, the more everyone benefits, right? The more everyone can come to Hyperliquid, the more hype token integrations there are in different places. Like the mere fact that like, people are like, oh, Stripe just announced Tempo and stuff, but Stripe is totally willing to literally integrate, like Bridge, the Bridge guys, right? They're willing to integrate anything with like USDH and stuff and work with them. Just shows like everyone wants to integrate this. You just need a responsible like group of people at the top, to make sure everyone is like aligned. That's the real thing that I think the proposal needs to look for, is like a responsible steward. And the other thing I'll say about this is like, I thought about this last night, where let's say Frax doesn't win. Okay, great. Like, someone else amazing. Like, I'm very happy for whoever wins. We would still love to work with them in a structure that we're envisioning. So hopefully they envision the same thing, and like positive sum of bringing as many people in like a coalition to responsibly like look over and build around the massive flows. But obviously then that's their choice, right? Whoever wins, like they could decide, no, like that we have a different view of like how this will work, right? And so one of the things that I think is really important is, how can we get the most number of people to responsibly work together to increase the size of the Hyperliquid pie for hype holders, right? If this is the ecosystem that we're all very excited to actually build on and actually make bigger, because of how special it is, how big it is, how wide of a distribution it has, how amazing of a deep product it has in Hypercore with the perp decks.
Yeah. And just one last thing for you, Sam. Why is this ticker in particular important to you guys? Like, theoretically, you can buy a different ticker in the future for, and get all the same perks, perp margin access, spot pricing markets. Why is this USDH ticker important to Frax?
Honestly, the ticker is not that important. To be completely clear, and I know the hyper liquid guys like made an announcement, oh, this is just for the ticker or whatever. Like, guys, don't, no one get too flustered. Like, there's going to be a bunch of other stable coins. We all love each other, yada, yada, yada. I think like the important, like clear thing, there's a reason. And everyone, you guys are having like an immediate like emergency live cast of this competition. Is it de facto the Hyperliquid stablecoin? The ticker could be whatever else too, right? It could be Mudang or whatever USD, right? So like, but the main thing is the alignment of the entire Hyperliquid, the foundation, the core team, this stuff, the community, right? This is basically a massive shelling point, right? This event is a massive shelling point, and king like legitimacy like event of who actually is the socially agreed on steward to the flows and stuff. We don't actually mind what the ticker is. In fact, like I was saying, I was talking to Julian and some people from Hyperliquid months ago about what's your guys' strategy. And so the feeling I got was that they're still figuring it out. And transparently, that's what it sounded like. They were saying the truth, like they'll figure it out later. And this seems like is what what they're going with, which is really cool. I actually think this, regardless of who wins, this will actually set a very, very great precedent of how to do these things. Like earlier today, I saw Athena and Mega ETH. I don't know if you guys saw that. They announced like USDM. Yeah. And that's super cool. And that's awesome. And actually somewhat jealous of Guy. Good work. I am an investor in Athena, full disclosure. So I'm
jealous
I love
of you.
It, but at the same at the same time, though, I was like, well, if we knew that existed, I wish the Mega ETH team did something similar to like HyperLiquid. Why not just be like, hey guys, like we're thinking about this instead of doing this like behind the scenes or whatever.
Just put it out there for everybody to get the best deal.
Exactly.
Make it
and so like,
give us some entertainment while you're at it. You know what I mean?
I think
something
this
to talk about.
Precedent-setting event for, I think, everyone can probably think of. Obviously, like no one is as big and systemically important as HyperLiquid, where it's like a top 10 coin, the biggest like DEX in the entire world. This is like the S tier of like, it's like the Super Bowl of stablecoin issuance competitions, right? But I think there will be, like NCAA championship kind of case as well.
Yeah, like bracket style. No, I mean, look, I think there are going to be a couple more entrants. You mentioned Athena. Maybe we get one or two, but the time's coming up. I mean, we're about 48 hours away from the proposal being, set on. So,
Sam, guys, I just got one last thing for you, and we hadn't asked the other two potential issuers this, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Circle a little bit and what Jeremy Allaire put up on Twitter and kind of reposted a blog post from a couple months ago. Any thoughts? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I am just curious. Like, it seemed like his proposal kind of fell flat. People were saying you made a mistake. You got a couple days to fix it. They're in the position where they've got the $5.5 billion. They've got the foothold, but they're at risk of losing it. If you're Jeremy Allaire, what do you do?
I would love. This is why I started talking to the HyperLiquid team like months ago, because I was like, honestly, at first I was like, do these guys just have a secret deal with like Circle to just like yield share almost all of the thing? But the condition is like, sign this NDA and don't tell everyone, because then everyone will go to Circle and be like, do it for us because you did it for them. I guess it does not appear that they do, or they might actually, and they might use this competition to go back and be like, yo, like actually, we want 100%, or like, you're screwed, right? But I would actually love to see Jeremy just come out and be like, okay, guys, like you're upping the ante. Circle will just give 100%, 90, 95% or whatever, and see what happens. I would actually love to see Circle commit like nearly 100% or close to 100% yield share, the same way we know they have it with Coinbase, right? USDC on the Coinbase platform, Coinbase gets 100% of that, right? And again, good example. Look at how beneficial that is. I know people look at the S1 filings and stuff being like, look how much they're paying to Coinbase, but Coinbase king-made USDC by having basically the official on-off ramp for dollars in and out of USDC, right? And so that's a perfect example of like, look, there's a deal that Circle doesn't get any like revenue from, but clearly it's symbiotically beneficial. Clearly, no one would say Circle is not benefiting from that in some way, right?
Mm-hmm. If HyperLiquid could make Circle bend the knee like that, it would just be the just epitome of DeFi's power, and just of the status that they've reached as a chain, as a protocol. Sam, just closing thoughts. We're running low here.
For sure. So last thing to reply to you, and then closing thoughts is, I think that's a good way to take it. But if everyone says it like that, I think Jeremy wouldn't
do it. Yeah. So maybe that's not the right way to say it.
So the way that I would say it is like Jeremy would come out and like basically Mortal Kombat KO combo.
Just absolutely destroy everyone. Yeah.
I would love to see that. Yeah. But anyway, the closing thoughts I think I would leave everyone with is, the most important thing is not the Genius compliance, because I think everyone that is in the short list is competent enough. When they say they're going to do it, they're going to work it with the proper structures. The other thing is not obviously the yield share, because 95, 100%. completely everyone is basically matched or thinking they're going to be matched. And I don't think that 5 bips is going to be the thing that's going to, the last straw that's going to break the camel's back. The most important thing is, what are the intangibles, right? Everything that looks kind of different on paper, like, oh, they have like rain cards, great. But I'm pretty sure the rain cards would integrate this, right, as well. Same thing with us. We work with Stripe and Bridge, but then so does the other proposal earlier, and then maybe another proposal later, right? Stripe and Bridge is going to be willing to be the integrator. The most important thing that I leave everyone with is, who is going to be the most responsible stewards and positive sum of the flows in and out of one of the most important ecosystems to ever exist in crypto, and will increase and maximize the coalition that feels they have a stake in making this the biggest pie possible, right? And whoever the Hyperliquid community, the validators and the hype holders vote, regardless of whether it's Frax or not, the point is, we would love to work with them if we don't win, because again, our vision is, we want to actually be a part of making sure that this is one of the best, the most positive sum in and outflows of USD regulated stables in the world.
Beautiful. Sam, thanks for your time, man. Look forward to the next 48 hours. I know it's going to be crazy for you.
Awesome. Thanks.
We're rooting for you,
guys.
Sam. Thanks, man.
Speak soon.
See ya.